Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Laura Skinner, and in each episode, we'll uncover the stories behind successful startups, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future expansion. Today, we're excited to have Bianca, the founder of her own executive coaching company. Bianca will be sharing more about her founding story and, of course, giving us a glimpse into their plans for future growth. So let's jump right in, Bianca, and welcome to Founders Future.
Thanks so much. Really excited to be here.
Love it. You are so welcome. So, take myself and, of course, the listeners back to the beginning. Would love to understand what inspired you to start, but also, of course, what you actually solve within the marketplace.
Yes, I've been in the founder's seat for 8 years, so I know the grind from basically doing it myself. I've built and led two health tech startups.
Love it.
I founded it in the early days of the European health startup or ecosystem. And as a female CEO, I've raised millions in funding. I've navigated all the intensity of being a young female CEO. And while building my second tech startup in the US, then in New York, I was living in New York back then, I burned out completely. And really to the point that it was unimaginable for me to continue how I used to do the 8 years before. For me, this was the invitation to look deeper, not only for myself, which was the first part of what I would say my healing journey in a way, or my transformational journey. So I looked into what brought me to this point. But then also, I really wanted to understand, okay, being a founder, being a young founder, being also a female founder, like what are the systemic challenges that we have to deal with? And from that, and I would say 5 years of intense training, I trained a lot in trauma-informed coaching, somatic coaching, somatic therapy. So everything that helps me to or us to understand the nervous system, our emotions, our patterns that really drive us. Like all the founders, or we usually have quite strong conditionings. And then also really understanding how our brain works under stress, what are the challenges of navigating really this high stakes world of entrepreneurship and high growth startups. And after or with these studies and trainings of about 5 years, what emerged quite organically was my coaching business, because founders that I have been in, like that I knew from the early days, or also I've been part of Techstars New York City. And so
Nice.
founders started to reach out to me and ask for support. And this is how actually my coaching business started, quite organically. And what I do, so one part of it is supporting mainly, I work mainly with the CEOs, but sometimes also with the founding team or with some key, let's say, key early founders or early employees. And what we do is really work with the emotions, with the nervous system, with the brain, and also with the really deep conditioning, the patterns that drive us to, for example, run on empty, even though our body already shows it's time to rest and regenerate, but somehow something is driving us to really push. And then the other part, which became a major part of my business as well, is what I call the advocacy. So advocacy for mental and emotional founder health. So I work together with VCs, with investors, also with universities to really educate and bring awareness to founder psychology, founder mental and emotional health. I'm running workshops, running masterclasses in their portfolio meetings, for example. I'm doing quite a bit of keynote speaking, panel talks. I'm also teaching at a university on emotional mastery for high growth founders and leaders. So this is how it all came into being.
I think what's super interesting about your story is the way that you found the business is obviously incredibly sad, right? In the sense that 8 years burnt out after 8 years. I can't even imagine what like life looked like at that point. I actually scaled a business to its first million, and the CEO from that business went through exactly the same thing. It was a scary time. And that was when we had 22 million from like stage two capital and
Yeah.
MIT and HubSpot Ventures. So I've witnessed it basically what I can only assume was similar to some extent that you went through. And watching someone go through that was just like so just awful, because when you really zoom out, like the worst thing is, and I get it, he was like, but people need me, people need money, like families, etc.
Yeah.
So I completely understand why the business was originated from, was painful. But now it sounds like you're doing so much work and reaching such a high volume of people to educate them, to understand them. And I'm sure this is all navigating towards more of a prevention than like reactive, right? We all want all of this to be prevented in somewhat. So I think it's awesome. I think the way that you found it is obviously upsetting, but what you're doing now just must add so much value to your day.
Thanks so much, Laura. Yeah, that's what I'm feeling. Like, it's interesting because both of the companies that I've, the two tech startups, were both coming from a personal, let's say, health issue. So I've
Sure.
always been the founder who really started something from a personal
Love it.
issue, personal challenge. And it's just, it emerged so naturally that it's also coming from this own having to go through this myself. And this is also why a lot of CEOs feel so comfortable working with me, because they know I really understand where they are and I can really put myself into their shoes. I know that it's not done by telling them they have to rest or they should change their mindset. No, it's really understanding what incredible pressure and responsibility, especially a startup CEO, has to carry. And I'm really feeling understood in that as well.
I think the fact you've done it as well, like even on, and I'm not like talk even comparing what our
Mm,
lives, but just like even working for a manager that's actually been in your
yeah,
seat makes you so much more motivated, right? It's just
yeah,
the same scenario. Is if you're being coached by someone that's done it, you're actually going to listen and take on their advice. Whereas like
yeah,
sometimes, bless my family, they try and give me advice, and I'm like, you don't understand what
yeah,
it's.
that's it, that's it.
I
Mm.
love it. Awesome. So talk to us a little bit about what it actually looks like as a customer. So I know we've spoke for the purpose of the podcast, we've had loads of conversations offline. Like I think what you're doing is awesome. But yeah, for the listeners, what does that look like from A to B? I know you've got retreats going on, you've got one-to-one. So talk to us a little bit about the structure.
Yeah, so usually founders come to me either via other founders that I already work with or being recommended by the VCs or investors, which
Yeah.
is usually not the best sign. You already mentioned it. At the moment, to be honest, I'm still working mostly with founders and CEOs who are basically in this state of emergency. So it's usually, Bianca, the house is on fire. What can we do? Can you help? So we are still at this stage, but it's better to start somewhere than to start nowhere. That's what I would say. So we are still not, I would say, in the preventative stage of founder executive coaching, or I'm usually not working with them. So yeah, they come through network mainly. And what I do, or what we start with, is usually a 12-week commitment. That's my minimum time that I work with them. Because what I'm not doing is talk-based coaching or talk-based therapy, but it's somatic. So we work with the nervous system, and for the nervous system, slowness and gentleness is key. So we need to build a relationship first in order for our subconscious and our nervous system to really drop more into a space of allowing, where we can see, okay, these are certain patterns that are repeating in your life. These are really deep triggers. These are emotional imprints. And then we really work with this. So it's usually, I would say, 20% talking and 80% your body is talking and your emotions are talking, right? And this is a huge difference. And then usually that's a really good foundation for having a strong relationship. And it depends, of course, what they are going through. So either we continue working in this weekly setting, or we then find a way how it really suits them. So I have quite a lot of founders where we do bi-monthly sessions or monthly sessions. It depends on the stage where they are, but usually I build a really long-term relationship with the founders. And then, as said, I'm always also hosting and offering masterclasses and workshops. So I have online workshops for everyone who is, let's say, my universe, in my orbit of, so it's all my community, let's say. So we're doing like monthly workshops on different emotions, on different topics, also some sharing circles. And then I'm offering retreats. So leadership retreats. I just came this weekend from co-facilitating a retreat. We will have our next one in June, two actually, one for leaders in general and one for female CEOs.
Love it.
Super interesting. And this is really the space where we can drop deeper into what is really boiling under the surface. We can really create the space to open up for emotions that usually don't have space in our really tight leadership schedule, in our agendas. So this is also what one of my big missions is, to create the space to feel and to tap into what is there, in order to prevent that it one day just like fires up like this volcano. Yeah, and then I'm doing the workshops with incorporation with VCs, with investors, sometimes with startup ecosystem. Yeah.
God, it sounds so full on, but so amazing. So when we just take zoom out, because we loved like discussing this on the podcast, and this will be really valuable for the listeners. So when we talk about go to market, we obviously mean sales and marketing. So where are the priorities in the coming months? Either any go to market constraints that you're looking to overcome, or anything that's like really top of mind when you're thinking about scaling this business in
Yeah.
like obviously a predictable manner? I would love to just speak about that.
You mentioned already the biggest constraint, which is that most of the CEOs I work with really want to work with me personally, because I have been in this. What's unique about my coaching is that I have been 2 times VC-backed CEO, who then trained to be a somatic therapist and a leadership coach. And I know the market quite well. Of course, there are amazing coaches as well out there, but many of them have not been in the founder seat, especially not for this intensity and length of time. So that is one constraint that I get reflected back from my clients. So I've been trying to bring in other coaches, or oftentimes refer them to other coaches, because I'm actually quite fully booked. But usually they come back and they say, no, we want to work with you. One thing that I'm working on is an initiative called Founders Who Thrive, which is more of really bringing this advocacy for fundamental and emotional health more on a bigger level. So I'll run masterminds together with amazing holistic medical doctor, where we really go more into the preventative side of it. I'm also running quite some online programs already around emotional mastery, so understanding our emotions under high pressure and stress. So that will be part of it. So this is basically the next step that is coming up immediately. Yeah, and then it's just really the question of, how do I maintain this intimacy and closeness that my work needs? But
Yeah.
also, how can I still scale in order to reach more founders? Because my mission is really that nobody has to go through what I had to go through. So to
Yes.
really bring this knowledge about emotions, our nervous system, our brain, to more founders.
It's so true. So this is just crazy, right? Because I completely understand what you're doing. It's like the intimacy versus the masses. It's like, how do
Yes.
I keep people like in front of me? And we work with a ton of people that have the same issue, right? In just different industries as well. With regards to the masterminds and the online stuff that you're doing, what's your strategy then? I know we're going off topic for what you're doing, but I'd love to understand what's your strategy there to get this in front of as many people as possible. Are you still going to rely on like network and referrals there, or what's your kind of go-to-market strategy for the Founders Who Thrive play?
Yeah. So at the moment, I have a really strong network of investors and startup ecosystem players supporting me. At the moment, or for the launch, I'll cooperate with investors and VCs who will either refer it or recommend it to their founders, or I'm also in conversations that some of them also pay for it to really set this statement. So this is the first wave, I would say, of launching it. But then, of course, I really want to reach more people with it.
And with regards to that, because obviously, like you've got your network and that's insane. You've got a huge network, but there'll be other networks that you've just never been exposed to that are
Yeah.
probably like, desperate to come to what you're putting on. So, do you feel like there's a way that you'll go down through like potentially paid ads or anything like that just to really get this out?
It is an option, of course, yes.
For sure. And then in terms of your sales process, just going back to the executive coaching, just so I can understand, as well as I guess the mastermind as well, but more so the exec coaching, when you're actually speaking to these founders, is there much of a sales process, or are you just, they've been referred, they know they need you, you basically just walk them through what it will look like, and it's quite an easy close in that sense?
Yeah, it's pretty much it. People always laugh at me because I say I have probably a 90 to 95% close rate. But it is, and then usually the feedback that I get is you need to raise your prices, you need to increase your prices.
Yeah.
I see the point, but at the moment it feels really, really good for me. And usually the founders get referred to me. We have an intro, a 30-minute intro call. I explain them how we work together, and then usually they take 1 or 2 days to think about it. And in general, they come back, or they come back and say, okay, I want to work with you in 2 months or so. And then once they get a proposal from me, I have everything automized on the backend side. So a really, amazing setup. So they get a proposal sent, and then they can confirm, they can pay their invoices, they get the contracts, they get their booking calendar, and then off we go.
That's insane. So basically, you're your only person within the business then, in terms of you've got no sales reps, etc.
No, it's I always joke that I built basically a good six-figure business again as a one-woman show. I have some people supporting me, of course, for small things, but so what I see a lot, and I'm not here to judge, is that many coaches are amazing in marketing, right? They are basically marketeers, and then they coach a little bit, right? But I was really clear, and I, of course, also had the privilege in a way of being in a quite good place. We made an exit with our first company, and I sold quite a big bunch or I sold a good bunch of my shares from the second company. So I was really in this place where I was like, I really want to make this about quality, and I want to have the best trainings. And I still invest about, I would say, roughly 50% of my revenues into trainings. So
So
that is
cool.
my biggest expense at the moment.
So
Yeah.
cool. You are completely right. You are truly right in what you're saying. And the fact that you've got the combination of you actually went and studied this and the fact that you've been in the seat is just super powerful. So before we wrap, because this has been super inspiring, and I think what you're doing is just phenomenal. What's the journey been like for you? Because interestingly, like you're talking about burnout prevention, but it sounds like you're doing so much. So like, how's the journey been for you? Because I'm sure you also need to prevent your own burnout in this again. Let's just
Sure.
bring this full circle, Bianca.
Yeah, I'm still an entrepreneur
Yeah, it's
at heart.
mental.
So I could still like, that's also something like people laugh at me sometimes because for me in my mind I'm working quite
Yeah,
little in a way compared to running a startup in New York. But for others, I'm like all the time working. But it's like for me, yeah, so it's really this when you have been a VC backed
okay,
CEO or founder, everything is chill after that in a way. But yeah, of course, I also have to apply my own tools and my own knowledge and wisdom. So it also happens that I get quite overwhelmed sometimes, or that I push quite a lot. Of course, I also have still this driving force in me and this performance conditioning in some ways. But the difference is that I see it
of
and
course,
I can call myself back. And I know how to work with myself. So, what I really work with the founders that I support on is that they build their own toolkit. So they know what works for them. And we cannot prevent that we get triggered. We cannot prevent that we go on, that we have high stress, because basically that's the environment that we put ourselves in, right? But what we can learn is to navigate it differently and to know what works for you. And for me, it's always movement. So I need to move every single day. I do quite a bit of yoga. We've spoken about it. Like I surf, which is that's my
Love it.
absolute balance outlet. So whenever I'm highly stressed or something is not going well, I just go for a surf. And that's also one of the reasons why I live on the coastline in Portugal. Yes, and then of course I also apply my own tools. I do quite a lot of breath work. I work, yeah, like I have my mentors supporting me, so it's an ongoing process.
I love it, Bianca. You are absolutely fantastic. So before we wrap, do you have any kind of key lessons learned? This could go on forever with someone of your caliber, but in terms of like quickly as such, do you have any kind of like key lessons learned, key takeaways? I'm sure you have a list of about 2,500, but anything that you can share with our listeners that you think will be valuable, either from 8 years as being a founder or setting up this business or anything like that?
I would say if you don't master your emotions as a founder, they will run your business, your decisions, your relationships, and eventually your life. And the same goes for your brain. If you try to hack your brain, you will lose 100%. You might think you are so smart that you can outsmart your brain, but no. It survived for thousands and millions of years. You cannot outsmart your brain. So learn about your brain, learn about your emotions, and work with them. That's my biggest takeaway.
It's just very compelling. It's just so true. It's just so hard to do, but it's just so true. That does wrap up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. I want to thank Bianca for sharing her incredible journey and insights with us today. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, do not forget to subscribe to Founders Future via wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find more resources and insights at closest.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their sales through world-class marketing systems. We look forward to seeing you in the next one.